Thank you for joining us for the second webinar in our Caring for Caregivers series. Today, we'll be discussing mindfulness, no time like the present, being mindful amidst the chaos.
Kira, I'm so glad we're talking about mindfulness today. I feel that it's such a commonly misunderstood concept. Normally, when I recommend mindfulness strategies to my patients, I'm faced with common misconceptions of what it actually is, such as it's just meditation, or it can only be done in a quiet space, or it's only good for mental health and it's just temporary. I'm hoping that today we highlight how being mindful can be such a useful skill to have and how it can be applied to a variety of settings, from work to home to school. I think it's something that anyone can do in virtually any setting.
Like a webinar? I think the best way to really showcase what mindfulness is to start by doing an activity together. All right, so let's get comfortable in our chairs and either close your eyes or focus on a spot in front of you. Take a deep breath to bring yourself into the present moment, just noticing whatever you're experiencing right now. Notice any sensations, even if they're those of discomfort or tension. Notice your feet on the ground, or if you're sitting, notice what you're sitting on. Notice your clothes against your body and the air against the skin. And now, notice whatever is in your mind. Whatever thoughts are there. And as best you can, just observe your thoughts as they're in your mind right now. Notice whatever you're feeling emotionally. Don't try to change it, but just notice how you're feeling. And now bring your attention to your breath. Just noticing the rise and fall of your stomach as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Notice the cool air flowing in through your nose as you inhale, and the warm air as you exhale. As you breathe in and out. If you find your mind wandering away from your breath, that's okay. That's just what minds do. Simply bring it back to noticing each breath, in and out, as they follow one after the other. And now allow your awareness to expand, encompassing your breath, moving in your body, bringing your awareness to your thinking, and whatever you're feeling emotionally right now. We're just going to gently broaden that awareness to notice the whole experience. Just holding everything in awareness. And now, whenever you're ready, you can bring your attention back to the room, opening your eyes if they're closed, pushing your feet into the ground and having a stretch if you need to. Welcome back.
Wow, that was so refreshing, yet at the same time so relaxing. And what I love about it, it was quick. I remember a few years ago when I first got introduced to mindfulness, I honestly thought it would take at least an hour out of my day to do that activity.
And I mean, you can certainly take an hour if you'd like to immerse yourself in mindfulness, but that simple exercise is just one example of how you can take just a few minutes per day to recharge, reset, and re-energize yourself for the rest of that day.
Honestly, Kira, personally, I can see myself doing this activity every morning before I start like a busy clinic. But Kira, quick question. I'm just not sure how this is, but I don't want to ruin it for the audience. I'm confused about our next slide. How does the DeLorean relate to mindfulness? I love Back to the Future, but really not sure how an 80s movie fits in with mindfulness.
I will explain. So the DeLorean highlights that we have time-traveling brains. That is, we can become stressed by things that are not in our immediate environment, things maybe that happened to us in the past or things that can happen to us in the future. Very tricky brains. For example, you might have noticed how, you're lying in your bed at night trying to get to sleep, but you're thinking about the time you took your child to the mall last week and they had a tantrum. And maybe you're even noticing like what you felt at the time, how maybe you felt embarrassed or you felt like a bad parent. And you might be thinking, oh, well, I have this family gathering coming up next week and I'm wondering if my kid can handle it. And these are just sort of really everyday examples of how our brains have a hard time remaining in the present and can really easily time travel to the past or the future instead of trying to attend to what's around us. And it's a very useful skill to be able to sort of time travel in our brains in that way, but it can also make lives a little bit more difficult for us. And that's where mindfulness can be really helpful.
And I think, Kira, it's important to first define what mindfulness is and how it's such an important skill to have as a caregiver. So let's start with mindfulness. So mindfulness is a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. Mindfulness involves breathing techniques like we demonstrated now, guided imagery, and other practices to relax the body and mind and help reduce stress.
And mindfulness is also a big part of the Buddhist tradition. So I personally really love the quote by Thich Nhat Hanh, which is also on this slide here, which says, while washing the dishes, one should only be washing the dishes, which means that while washing the dishes, one should be completely aware of the fact that one is washing the dishes. The fact that I'm standing there and washing these bowls is a wondrous reality. I'm being completely myself. I'm following my breath, conscious of my presence and conscious of my thoughts and actions. There's no way I can be tossed around mindlessly like a bottle slapped here and there on the waves. I think that really beautifully captures what mindfulness is really all about.
And Carrie, really it highlights like in being mindful, we're really focusing on the present and really trying to avoid dwelling on ruminations about the past or anxious thoughts about the future. It's about seeing the world for what and how it is instead of through a clouded lens of sometimes negative thoughts or even rose-colored glasses. We really try to focus on our immediate surroundings and sensations while simply letting these thoughts and feelings come and go like passing clouds.
And mindfulness practice can look like a form of meditation. You could sit down in a comfortable, quiet spot for a set period of time, close your eyes, and focus on your surroundings, what you sense around you, the way your body feels, and your breathing. You don't need special equipment, and even doing this for 5 to 10 minutes per day can be beneficial. But maybe you don't feel like you have 5 to 10 minutes in your day. Maybe it's hard to sit still for that long. Mindfulness practice can also be invisible. If we return to that idea of washing the dishes to wash the dishes, you can incorporate mindfulness into your day in any daily activity you're doing, whether that's showering, having a cup of coffee, or making dinner. In this version, you definitely might not have your eyes closed, but you can still pay attention to the sights and the sounds and the sensations of what you're doing instead of letting your mind drift to other things. That's it. That's mindfulness.
And I think that's the essence of what mindfulness is. The essence of mindfulness is a gentle, non-judgmental approach. And the goal is to not avoid your thoughts, but letting thoughts and feelings come and go. I love this quote by Jon Kabat-Zinn. You can't stop waves, but you can learn to surf. It's a quite popular quote. You may have seen this everywhere. From someone who is sometimes referred to as the father of mindfulness in the Western world. So the waves can represent life's many changes and challenges, most of which are unstoppable. Think of mindfulness as that ability to surf those waves. It may sound simple and straightforward, but for anyone that's tried to surf, it takes a lot of time and effort to develop it.
Mm-hmm. It's not worrying about getting it right or getting frustrated by the mind wandering. Like I said, that's just what minds do. Thinking is part of human nature. We have these amazing brains that have evolved to let us do so much all at once that sometimes we have to help them remember that it's okay to just do one thing at a time. Thoughts and feelings will come and go, but we're just noticing them and letting them pass. And when our minds wander, as they inevitably will, we just bring it back to the body and the breath.
So, Kira, how can we help these caregivers? And this is a common question I get asked a lot. Because caregivers often go above and beyond to provide care to their loved ones and end up working past their limits. And this can lead to burnout and other negative consequences. I think we covered this fairly in a lot of detail in our last webinar. But being mindful and intentional, caregivers can stop and think about whether they're overworking themselves and whether they should slow things down. Trying to do too much may seem like it would be helpful for their loved ones, but it ends up hurting them in the long run due to the negative impacts on the caregiver.
Absolutely. Caregiving can be filled with stress, worry, regret. Staying in the present can help so that we can manage negative emotions and build emotional strength. This in turn allows caregivers to care for their loved ones more effectively. For example, many senior caregivers might wonder what will happen if their loved one's condition deteriorates or the potential after effects of serious medical issues. These ruminations aren't all that helpful and can seriously affect caregivers' mental health. Mindfulness helps make caregivers better at what they do through a variety of proven benefits to mental health.
Well said, Kira. And I think that's what we know for sure. That's to say, if we don't adequately support caregivers, they can't support their children and families.
Absolutely. And to that end, I'd like to teach one more mindfulness activity before we end today, called the brief body scan. A body scan is intended to increase your awareness of how your body is feeling at the moment and relieve stress where you find it in your body. It can be done lying down, sitting, or whatever posture is most comfortable for you. And the one that we'll do today is intended to be completed while you're sitting. So we'll start by settling into our chairs, back straight, eyes closed or looking downwards, and feet flat on the floor. We can start by taking a few deep breaths. Just noticing the fresh air that enters your body with each inhale, and the sense of relaxation that comes with each exhale. Try to start slowing your breathing, saying to yourself with each slower and deeper breath, mind slowing down, body slowing down. bring your attention into your body, noticing what it feels like to have your feet supported by the ground. The solidness of the floor, the warmth, what it feels like to have your legs against the chair. Moving your attention upwards, notice what your stomach feels like. If it feels tight, try to let it soften and relax. Again, taking deep, cleansing breaths. Notice how it feels to have your back supported by the chair. Just bringing your attention to any areas of tightness and trying to relax those muscles. Now bring your attention to your hands, noticing whether they're tense and allowing them to soften if they are. Notice the sensations that arise as you move your attention up along both arms to your shoulders, letting them soften if you feel any tension or tightness. And bringing your attention to the back of your neck, let those muscles relax. As you move your attention further upward, notice your facial muscles and try to soften your expression, your jaw. And just take a couple of deep breaths, maintaining that softness. And we end this practice by bringing our attention outwards to the whole body, enjoying that newfound feeling of softness and relaxation, and just taking a few more deep breaths. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and return to the room. Welcome back.
Kira, I genuinely love this activity. This is an activity that I do on a regular basis. But I do remember when I first tried this activity on my own, it was really difficult. I wasn't used to paying attention to my body in that way. But what I also realized with a bit of research is this activity has so many different applications and so many benefits. I've seen body scan meditation used to treat chronic pain, reduce anxiety and stress, help with sleep, and even manage symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Mm-hmm. And what I really love about just highlighting the couple of activities we did during this webinar is this activity is just one of many activities that our CARES program really teaches. And I think in CARES, caregivers will learn various mindfulness techniques, activities, and exercises, and how to incorporate them into a daily routine. We all have busy lives. So having these kinds of activities where we can kind of fit them in is such an essential component for us to not only provide caregiving continuously, but also in a sustained manner.
Absolutely. We highlighted just a few mindfulness strategies and techniques, and there's, like I said, no time like the present. And focusing on the moment can bring us that relaxation and calm, which can be really hard to come by as caregivers. If you, the audience, would like to learn more about some of these strategies, please do feel free to join our CARES program offered in partnership with Autism Ontario. The good news is that it's completely free, can be done in the comfort of your own home, and really prioritizes you, the caregiver. Thank you all for listening today. All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our webinar today. The remaining time that we have today is to answer any questions that you might have about mindfulness, as well as about the CARES program. And we're really looking forward to hearing your comments, questions, concerns. Shiv, anything to add?
No, I've already see some questions just popping up right now. So I think because we have a short period, why don't we start with some of these questions, right? This was a great one because I think we get this a lot when parents and caregivers are signing up. Is mindfulness the same as meditation?
That's an interesting question. I think people often mix the two up, right? Mindfulness is used as a placeholder term for meditation and vice versa. Though I would say that mindfulness is just one of many forms of meditation. It's all about focusing your attention on the present moment and to observe your thoughts without judgment, rather than really getting caught up in what they mean and trying to lead your thoughts as opposed to being led by them. I think mindfulness also has to do with, a focus on and groundedness in the breath, which is why people might confuse it with meditation. So it's true that sometimes we might need to sit and just quietly meditate, focus on that breath, and try to sort of take on that observer perspective with our thoughts. Other times, though, mindfulness can also be part of daily life. Even just noticing things around us can interrupt the mind's tendency to dwell on the negative. And mindfulness, the great thing about it is you can really fit it into any sort of daily activities that you already do every day. So whether that's showering, enjoying your morning cup of coffee, walking to work, or even working out. It could also include trying a new activity, such as walking a different route to work or visiting maybe a new sort of natural environment that you've never been to before, and just taking the time to absorb all the sensations that come with that new environment. So there's lots of things that you can do mindfully. And I think that's one of the great things about it. It's so flexible.
And what I really like about mindfulness is like what you just mentioned, Kira. It's like that flexibility to do it in any setting. I think we sometimes get accustomed to having to sit down, having to set some time aside, having everything to be silent around us. When really, once we really get good at mindfulness, you can do it anywhere. You can do it while you're sitting on the bus on transit. You can do it while you're waiting for an appointment, maybe at the doctor's office in the waiting room, right? There's quite a lot of different ways you can use mindfulness. There's two questions that are actually popping up, which I think are kind of linked, and here it really links to like what we mentioned in this presentation. So one of the questions is, my mind is always so busy. What's the best way to start mindfulness? 5 minutes seems like a really long time. And another one that says, I'm a mother of twins on the spectrum, and I have very little time in the day for myself. How can paying attention to washing my dishes help? I just feel that I can use that same time to better plan the day.
Wow, those are some great questions. Do you want to jump in on that first, Shiv?
Yeah, so I think that's the aspect that we really want to kind of reinforce, that really, although we may think that just taking that amount of time to ourselves may actually be counterproductive, because we could possibly get something done in those 5 minutes that we take. But the reality is, a lot of times when we're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, our mind is just jumping back and forth for all these different tasks, but we never are able to complete it because we're just overwhelmed. Sometimes we can't, focus or concentrate or sustain that for periods when we're feeling that kind of stress or anxiety. And that's where really mindfulness, maybe even taking those 5 minutes, can provide that moment of relaxation, helping you quote unquote reset, so that you can be a bit more productive during that day. Kira, do you want to kind of add to that?
Absolutely. I think also focusing especially on caregivers, like one of those questions had mentioned, I think caregivers have developed this amazing and very helpful ability to multitask, right? So many caregivers are doing multiple things at once and trying to, whether that's sort of mentally multitask while, say, washing the dishes, by planning your day, or literally just doing many different things at once. And that's a habit that's really been reinforced with respect to not really paying attention to what's happening in the present moment. I think the bigger picture is about learning to shift from, continually living in the future or always thinking and ruminating about the past, that sort of time traveling brain, right? And trying to just become acutely aware of what's really happening right in front of you. And training that attention to stay with the present moment as it happens really supports the mind's ability to see clearly and learn. And I think that allows us to understand the thoughts that we're experiencing in the present moment much better. It also allows us to have much more authentic interactions with those around us. When we're able to really be there for our children, for our partners, for ourselves, right? For whatever we're trying to get done in the day, you can truly sort of experience all parts of that moment. And I think that when you're able to sort of create that space for yourself, that brings with it some mental clarity and some resilience.
Exactly. Now, I think this actually leads to this next question that I'm seeing here. So I haven't started to use mindfulness yet, but my therapist had recommended it, saying it isn't just for mental health. And is that true? Kira, I'm actually going to jump in on this one, mainly because it's true. I think for a lot of us, we assume that mindfulness and even meditation is just primarily for our own mental health. Or our minds. But actually, beyond our minds, there's been a lot of evidence that mindfulness helps with other physical ailments. For example, we know now that it helps with heart disease or even blood pressure. It's now recommended that mindfulness and meditation be included in a treatment plan for treating blood pressure because it's known to reduce it. It's also been shown to be really valuable in helping with chronic pain conditions, for example, such as fibromyalgia. There's quite a few studies that have shown that participants that have engaged with mindfulness activities while they're getting treatment for fibromyalgia have actually noticed a decrease in their pain symptoms. We know it helps with irritable bowel syndrome. It helps with addictions. It helps with even boosting your own immune system, which is something, everyone over the last year and a half, 2 years with the pandemic has really been, striving to do. Like, how do I, improve my immune system? So mindfulness has a lot of applications that we may be underestimating right now. But the reality is, like, we've spoken about is, a few years ago when people used to talk about running, and the health benefits from that. Initially there wasn't a lot of evidence, and now we find there's more and more evidence for running and improving your cardiovascular system. And I think the same thing can be said for mindfulness and how they're going to start to really realize through research that there's a lot of evidence in terms of how it better improves our health, not just our mental health, but our physical health as well. Kira, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you covered that so well. I'm noticing that we have just a little bit of time left. I'm seeing a really important question that just came up, which is, can you tell us more about what CARES is and where we can sign up? Shiv?
So CARES is a caregiver support group. So it's a program that allows caregivers to not only learn some of these skills that we're talking about in our presentations, but also to connect with other families and other caregivers that have shared similar experiences. And you can sign up for it on the Autism Ontario website, as well as we've provided a link down below and handouts on where you can actually sign up, as well as our presentation is available as well for download here with the handouts portion. And this recording, including the Q&A session, will also be available for download with later on, and that'll be sent to you guys as well. But yes, CARES is really a program for caregivers, and we're hoping to see everyone that's out there listening to, sign up for this program. And like Kara had mentioned, it's a completely free program. So feel free to join us. We'd love to see you there. And we have great facilitators here at Autism Ontario that love to just help you navigate those little hurdles in life. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining today. We hope you had a great time learning a little bit more about mindfulness, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of this webinar.